But just as Jesus heard the voice of the Father when he was baptized, "This is my Son in whom I am well pleased," I felt like I should say that to this girl who was being baptized. "This is my daughter in whom I am well pleased." And I had no idea of her backstory. She was unknown to me, really, introduced by the group down there at this little Baptist church. And I saw in her eyes tears just well up in her eyes. And I went, oh, okay.
Welcome to the Prophecy Project, an accessible prophecy podcast. In each episode, we explore some aspect of prophecy, from theology and practical aspects of hearing God, through to leading healthy prophetic cultures and exploring how prophecy can enhance local mission. Accessible Prophecy is a global ministry that helps individuals grow in the prophetic and helps local churches grow healthy and mature prophetic cultures. And now, here are your hosts, Andrew Hill and Christine Wanstall.
Welcome to the Accessible Prophecy Project podcast. Oh, I nearly tripped over the title, Andrew. Just for everyone listening, this is our second take because somehow the recording stopped. I think I probably brushed past a button and I don't know what I did, but I got the title perfect the first time.
You
so
did.
I was a bit worried.
Although we did think about, how you could shorten this, could you just call it P cubed? Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, you have to explain it to everybody, which just really defeats the purpose, doesn't it?
It does. It does defeat the purpose. Hey, Andrew, leaders go first in our Prophecy Project podcast. And so I was actually wondering, how's God been speaking to you lately? Give us an example.
Oh, I was going to say, that's a great idea, Chris. I love it when leaders go first. And so you were going to lead the way? Okay.
No, I got there first.
You did. So for those of you who don't know, it was my birthday last week. And so, it's
happy birthday to you.
One of those days that, you get to the point of things when you're above 50 and you go, really, do we have to celebrate it? Yeah, we do, because it's always good. It's always good to celebrate.
Well, I am in my 50s, Andrew, but you will always be older than me. So just to put that out there.
Yeah, it seems like I'm older than everybody a lot of the time. Which is terrible. Anyway, it's not about me. Question was, how's God speaking to you?
What's God been saying?
Anyway, yeah. And so it was interesting, preparing for my birthday. Leanne had said to me, we're going out for lunch on Friday, and so just be ready at 12 o'clock. And I went, oh, okay, yep. And immediately when she said that, I thought, oh, I know where we're going. And I didn't say anything to Leanne, but I thought, oh, yeah, we'll be going up to, Sky High, this great bistro up there and nice view and all that sort of stuff. Didn't say anything to her. And then on the morning of my birthday, I was doing something, I had to shift some cars around. I thought, oh, I'll leave the car out of the garage because we'll need to go out for lunch. And then I went, oh, no, we won't, because Julie and Greg will be picking us up. Now, Leanne had said nothing to me about our friends, going out to lunch with us. But I just had this random thought that intersected my world at that point in time. Oh, we'll be going here and these friends will be picking us up for lunch. Anyway, I just didn't say anything to Leanne, went inside, started getting changed, heard the car drive up the driveway and went, oh, Julie and Greg are here. So I walk out and they go, surprise. And I go, oh, not surprised. And they went, what? And I went, oh, no, I thought you'd be coming. And they went, what? And I went, yeah, these God speaks sometimes. And so, yeah, great. It's great to share lunch together. And they went, oh, okay, this is really interesting. And then we got in the car, we drive out down to the driveway, and Leanne goes, yeah, right. And then I go, yeah, and right to the end and right again. And Leanne goes, how do you know where we're going? I go, I just know where we're going. She goes, really? And I'm like, yeah, up the mountain. And she goes, yeah. But we weren't going there yesterday. And I said, yeah, we were. She goes, no, we weren't. I said, oh, well, we are now. So, and I knew where we were going. And so for me, I just felt like, some people will go, oh, that's just, coincidence. And I'm like, no, actually, I think it's God's providence. And, I feel like that, I've been asking God for some stuff of late and talking to him about some stuff. And I think I shared, when we were doing our last podcast, that I've been embarking on this 40-day prayer challenge. And so I just felt like that this was God almost saying to me, see, I'm listening and I'm speaking if you're listening. And so keep listening because I am speaking to you. And so if he can speak to me about the random little things, he can speak to me about the important things that I'm seeking him on, which was
Isn't
a
it?
really nice birthday present, actually.
It just speaks to me so much as you're talking about that. I just hear God is a good, good father who wants to give good gifts to his children. Like it's that I can just see God going, oh, I'm so excited for this, and Andrew's going to love it, and it's going to be such a great birthday.
And his friends are going to go, what is he talking
What?
about? And what? Because I know people, this is the crazy thing. This does not normally happen to me. Like, I know
Okay.
people who get frustrated by their spouses who are prophetic and know where they're going for birthday dinners, lunches, and know the gifts that they're getting before they have received them. So, for
Wow.
them, it's a bit frustrating. It's like, I can't keep a secret from this person because God tells them everything. And so I sat there on Friday going, actually, it's really nice just having these, little glimmers. And again, if he can talk to me about those little things, then he'll be talking to me about the big things when his time is right. Because
Yeah.
he's a good father, and he loves to share, these moments with us and bless us. And I think for me that was just a real blessing.
Oh,
But
that's awesome.
what about you?
Uh, Come on, did I say leaders go first? Surely
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I think for me, like God's been speaking in a bunch of different ways, and one of the ways is just this increased sense of hunger for God's presence. But the other way that God's been speaking to me is through coaching huddles that we do. So here at Accessible Prophecy, one of the things that can help people grow in the prophetic gift is to take part in coaching huddles. So, coaching huddles are a great way just to grow in content knowledge, so to understand more about it. But we also do listening exercises, and listening exercises are things to increase our capacity or our skill, our competency, our skill in hearing God. And so, in some of the coaching huddles, we share words with each other. And a couple of the words recently I'm just going through, I feel like I'm going through this season of discerning and digging deeper into
yeah,
words. Like, I don't know about you, but there are some words that I get where I immediately go, oh, I know what that's about. And you know what God's asking me to do or how it's encouraging me or what it means. And there's just a couple of words that have been given that I feel like God's inviting me to go deeper and actually spend more time to dig into them. So one of them was around sowing seeds and this sense of me sowing seeds in unexpected places and actually seeing great harvest out of that,
yeah,
which sounds really encouraging, doesn't it?
yeah.
Um, but I sat there going, uh, oh, so are there actually, am I stopping? Am I not looking for unexpected places because I think they're not worth it, or it's sort of the image was of almost a dark place.
Yeah.
Because I think we're all busy, and sometimes we, look at things about is it worth the return? Am I going to invest time and effort in something? Is it actually going to be worth it? Um, but the seed is God's for us just to sow, like we need to be sowing, but also not cutting myself off from those opportunities. So just sitting a bit longer with words can be really helpful just to try and dig in a bit more because you don't want to miss what God's saying, do you? We don't want to miss the opportunities because if God's saying, actually, there's this opportunity off to the side or there's something off to the side where I want you to go and sow seeds,
Yeah,
you need to go and do it.
absolutely.
Yeah. So there you
That's
go. So
cool.
that's what I'm sitting with at the moment.
That's cool, isn't it? But doesn't it show you that God actually is speaking? He speaks in so many different ways,
Totally.
but he's speaking to, well, he's not just speaking to us. Like I have no doubt that there are people listening to us talk, and they will be able to, and I hope this is the case, that they'll be able to, even share how God's speaking to them at the moment with someone that, they're in relationship with. Because I think this is the encouraging thing. And I don't think we're that good at on telling these stories. Like
I
when we were
totally
driving up
agree.
when we were driving up the mountain the other day, and I said, yeah, I knew where we were going. And they go, did Leanne tell you? And I go, no. And they go, how'd you know? And I go, I think it was just the whisper of God that, he was just encouraging me. And look, they're both Christians. They're both, one's pastor, one's has a prophetic gift on his life as well. And so, and so for them to hear this, they're just going, yeah, we need to press into that more, don't we? Like
I
it was just,
totally agree. Absolutely agree.
yeah. And so I love the fact that if God's talking to us and encouraging us, and that, the role of the prophetic to build up, to edify the church, which is his people, it's a great thing to acknowledge that he is actually doing that. And so on telling the story, and I love that, what he said to you about the seeds and the scattering of seeds, and, they are God's seeds. So yeah, keep scattering them, and you never know what's going to happen.
And that's the thing, though, about that particular prophetic word, um, that I'm not going to go into a space to scatter seeds and then go, hang on, God said that there was going to be a harvest here, or God said that I was going to get lots of return, because I can't define what the unexpected places are. Like I just feel like that picture is an invitation for me to be more intentional around, or being open to opportunities,
Yep.
and then see what God does.
Yeah.
But I don't think I will be disappointed if I feel like there's been no massive revival or no massive harvest. It's up to me to just scatter what God gives me and be open to different places that might happen. Um,
And I think that's the beauty of even that picture. You don't know where those seeds are going to land and where they're going to
no,
take root,
yeah.
and who they're going to influence, because, well, you know, the wind blows where it will, doesn't it? And so, God takes those seeds wherever he needs them to be, as long as we're faithful in sowing them. They will land where he wants them to land and impact who he wants them to impact, which is really cool. So good.
Sometimes I think it's us being willing to say a bit of a yes to God. Like, we filter through opportunities or conversations. We assume things that, oh, I shouldn't say that to that person because, that's not going to mean anything. Or, we rationalize stuff in our head.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that stops us digging in to actually partner with God where He's wanting us to. Like I was thinking the other day, I was out the front gardening, and anyone will tell you that gardening is not one of my spiritual gifts. And so
Is that is that code for saying you have a different coloured thumb to a green one?
I'm like, I have been described as a serial killer of plants.
Oh, of plants. Good. Glad you added that into our podcast. Like, seriously. Oh dear.
Anyway, I was out doing some gardening.
Yeah.
And this woman walked past, and she just stopped and chatted. And she was a young woman, and she's just moved into the neighbourhood. And as I was just chatting with her, because normally I would do the chit chat and in my head go, I just need to get back to gardening.
Yeah.
And but I just felt this prompt around, ask her if she's involved in anything, just tell her that you're part of the church. So I just shared, you're part of any groups, because she's just moved into the area. And I said, oh, we're part of the Baptist church. Anytime you want to drop by, just come in. And the conversation finished soon after that. But oftentimes it's that little prompt of not closing things off, asking another question, being willing to engage in conversations, that you find God steps into those spaces and
Absolutely.
nudges us and pushes us
Yeah.
a bit further.
That's good.
Yeah, so I think it's exciting. But Andrew, that's actually got nothing to do with the topic it's sort of got to do with the topic of what I wanted us to talk about today.
Oh, gardening.
Because you're
This is the new
gardening.
gardening podcast for.
No, was it you that said last time I should do a podcast on traveling with one bag? Well,
Yes.
maybe you should do the gardening podcast because my gardening podcast is go to Bunnings, get a plant, bring it home, and realize it's dead about 4 weeks later.
Yeah, don't worry, I got those stories too. I think we all got those stories. I could do a
Yeah.
I could do a plastering with a pasta
Ah,
podcast maybe.
plaster.
Yeah.
Hang on,
Yeah.
no, you actually mean plastering on the walls, don't you?
Yes. Yes, I do mean plastering
Not
on the
getting
walls.
plastered with the pasta.
No, no. Oh no, no, we won't do that podcast. No. Plastering with a pasta. Yeah. It's like, yeah. It's a
Excellent.
more a renovation podcast, I think. Yeah. That could be interesting, but no. There's enough shows about that. Anyway, so what were
Well,
you going
you
to talk
never
about
know,
today?
talking about God as you renovate. Um, so it's a bit of a listener question today, Andrew.
Hmm.
I was going to, I was going to do some funny line about Mel from Moorabbin wrote in just asking us. Um, but it is a question that came up in one of the coaching huddles around what do you do if your prophetic ministry in your church becomes woolly? And I suspect globally using the term woolly may not land. So it would be helpful for us just to unpack what do we mean by woolly. Australia, New Zealand, we exactly know what woolly means, and I
Going to be
suspect
sheep related.
sheep related. Bit of a jumper, a knitting expedition.
Yeah.
Um,
Soft, warm, cozy, not very pointed, maybe. Is that what
yes,
we're talking about?
that's exactly what we're talking about. It becomes a bit vague, maybe a bit confused, ill-defined, could be another word that you'd use, hazy, unclear.
Yeah.
If I dig out my thesaurus, fuzzy would be another one. So lacking clarity.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, Mel from where was it? Moorabbin?
Moorabbin.
Moorabbin. Um, great, really great question. And I think there's a lot to be said around oh, woolly words, maybe not on the mark, not sharp. I look at words from the Bible and they were pretty sharp. Like the words of Jesus, whenever he was talking to people, his words were pretty sharp. Now I don't mean in sharp. I don't
Harsh.
mean
You
yeah.
don't
I
mean
don't mean
harsh, do you?
harsh. No, I mean they
Focused?
they were focused. They were on the mark. They were what people needed to hear at that point in time to encourage them, to spur them on, to draw them to repentance in many ways. And certainly that was, when you look at Old Testament prophets, you certainly go, wow, that's pretty sharp. That sometimes they were beating people around the head, but trying to point them towards God. And so yeah, I think maybe that when there are woolly words, maybe there is a time to, I don't know, pause, sharpen, encourage people to really tune in, listen to God. What is He saying? What's He trying to really convey to the church, to the person, to people, for His purposes? What is He trying to say? Yeah.
I wonder if sometimes we, our prophetic ministry can become a bit woolly or general um, if we rush into it, or maybe we don't spend that time. Like I was sitting there thinking, how does the prophetic ministry become woolly? And I suspect it's if we're concerned about hurting someone or stepping too far, overstepping our boundaries. Maybe it's we start to see the same sorts of words coming forward each week or every time we pray. The words start to become quite general, and I wonder if people worry or are out of practice or not discipled to push into God in different ways. Um, so
That could be.
sometimes I think it can happen if we use the same processes all the time. Now, by that, I'm hearing myself say that And in my head, I'm going, what do you mean?
What sort of processes do you mean?
Yeah,
Are
like,
you talking about general, there's an expectation that as you pray for someone, you're going to get a word for them, and it becomes very general and very loving and encouraging that basically
yes,
anyone would think, you know,
yes, like God loves you. He really delights in you. Like some people need that, but
absolutely. And it is truth.
it's true. It's absolutely true. But it's not the sharp, like it's not those clarifying words or the really, there are words that sit at our soul level,
Yeah,
that just bypass a whole bunch of stuff.
yeah,
And sometimes the expectation to bring a word can push us into a place where we bring very general prophetic words rather than like we feel the pressure of delivering, if you like. I wonder if that actually pushes the prophetic ministry into a bit of that general space. Or the other option is that we've had some too sharp words, and by that I mean harsh words or words that have stepped over the line,
yeah.
and we then are fearful or we shrink back into more general words so that we don't overstep the mark with people.
And I would say that there's sometimes it is trying to achieve that balance because we know that, and I said it just a minute ago, that the role of the prophetic is to build up, to edify and strengthen the church. And so the church is the people, not the buildings. We don't strengthen the bricks and the mortar around our prophetic words, but we do strengthen people. And and yet at the same time, I do wonder whether sometimes we do get too pointed, and becomes, maybe our words become a little bit directive rather than, okay, this is like, for example, I privileged enough to do a baptism a couple of weeks ago at a little church, one of our little Baptist churches, and I was doing this baptism, and they said to me, "Can you do a bit of a blurb beforehand? What baptism's all about?" And so I was doing that, and then I just really felt like, and this is me. This is the wording that I use. I felt like.
Hmm.
So it's open to interpretation. That gives you've got to test this. But just as Jesus heard the voice of the Father when he was baptized, "This is my Son in whom I am well pleased," I felt like I should say that to this girl who was being baptized. "This is my daughter in whom I am well pleased." And I had no idea of her backstory. She was unknown to me, really, introduced by the group down there at this little Baptist church. And I saw in her eyes tears just well up in her eyes. And I went, "Oh, okay. Okay, Andrew, that's probably pointed enough." This is an encouragement to her that that this is not just, an outward sign of an inward thing that she's doing, but actually this is a meeting place with God for her, and that actually these words are words that Jesus wants to say over her as she's going to get baptized today. "You're my daughter. You're now part of this family, but more than a family, you're my daughter. You belong to me, and I will look after you, and I will be with you." And all of those things that, come with being a daughter. And actually, I'm really pleased that you've made your way through some of the stuff that you've been through, and you've kept obedient to me, and here you are. I'm so well pleased with you. And I sit there and I go, "Yeah, now, is that scriptural? Yep.
Yeah.
Could it be said over anyone? Yeah, it probably could." So maybe some people would go, "Oh, that's a bit woolly." But actually for her, it was sharp as, not in a bad way, but sharp. It's what she needed to hear from God. And so I just go, "Okay, well, I think I've done what I was called here to do." And yet there's a gentleness around the way that it was done, and all that sort of stuff. So I think, even though, like, when we use scripture, it can be a little woolly, it can be a little
I
general, but at the
yeah.
same time, it never returns to God void. The word is as sharp as a double-edged sword. And so, you start to trust that God is going to use his word to minister into people's lives.
I think there's a difference between the right word in the situation, which is what that word sounded like. Like you had that internal nudge, and as you started to say those words, there was a sense of the Spirit moving and going, this is the word for her. And you personalized it to her. And so I would say that absolutely is not woolly, because that's the right word in the right situation to the right person.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes part of it is our posture as we come into situations where either we're so busy or got so much stuff in our head that it can be hard to calm our minds, to quieten our minds and our soul, and really hear what God is saying to us, to hear the now words, to hear the words. And I think there's elements there where I think woolliness or lack of clarity can happen when we feel the pressure to deliver something, and we're maybe not paying attention to the Spirit, or we haven't been able to spend the time to sit with the Spirit to do it. So this conversation came about because it was a conversation around if your ministry is becoming woolly, if your prophetic ministry, you're finding it heading into that zone, how do you pull it back? How do you recognize that the words are becoming very general? And actually, how do you help the ministry pivot into a more healthier space where it is clearer, where it is sharper? So if we think about, you've got a pastor that's sitting in front of you saying, how do we bring sharpness or clarity into our prophetic ministry? What would you say to them?
Look, it is a good question, but I think my rule of thumb is I am always going to God with stuff. And so, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, and I know numbers of pastors who do this, but one of my nephews, who's a pastor up in Cairns, he gets to the end of this message preparation, and every Sunday, he's going, okay, God, that's great. That's a word for the church. But have you got anything that you want me to share for someone specifically? And just ask God. And if there's quietness, well, it's okay. Don't feel like you have to. But at the same time, I think more often than not, if we ask and we wait, and sometimes waiting is actually a really good thing, just waiting for God. If we wait on him, then he will provide. I have this phrase on the tip of my tongue that I've heard recently. We have not because we ask not. And I would almost say we have not because we ask not, and we wait not. You know what
That's
I
a
mean?
great point. Just the time, because that takes time, doesn't it? It takes time, and it takes us focusing on God. It takes us posturing ourselves so that we sit in front of God. We're faced towards God. We're
Yeah,
open to God.
yeah. And if we do that, if we're trying to listen for his voice, and we're trying to, be obedient to him. And I'm not saying, oh, if you do this, you'll get the answer or anything
It's
like that. I'm
not
not saying that.
legalistic. No.
No. But I do think, when we ask, and I know numbers of people who say, a simple phrase like this: God, what are you wanting to say to the church this morning? Or what are you wanting to say to my friend as I meet with them today? What are you wanting to, not what am I wanting, what are you wanting to say? So even, your question from Mel from Moorabbin, you know, um, where did that come from? Came from a group of people who were talking. Okay, well, what is God wanting to say to that group of people? And how do we encourage them today? How do we build them up today? What is God wanting to say? What are you wanting to say to build Mel up today, God? And it might be as simple as, oh, I love you. But maybe it's that thing you're facing. I see it too. I know how heavy it is on your shoulders. And actually, just give that to me. You don't need to carry that, whatever
Do
that
you,
is.
do you think sometimes, because I think sometimes we operate in either ends of the spectrum, that sense that I sometimes think with churches, they either struggle to engage with God, or the prophetic is overvalued and overused, and so it loses its value um, because there's so much of it. I don't know. It's just a random thought that as you're talking, I go, we can be at either end of the spectrum where we're too scared to engage in case we overstep the mark, or we engage so much that um, it's not that we make up words, but I feel like that there's just this thing of I want to participate, so therefore I'll share a word that may or may not be from God.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I never want to say that people aren't hearing God, like that's because that's not my place to do that. But I think
Mm.
helping churches to go, how do we push into God? How do we value the prophetic word? But how do we, uh, so we don't want to shy away from it, but we want to spend the time and value what we're given, so that we actually, when we're hearing God, when God is speaking to us, which we know He wants to do all the time, we actually push in and recognize when that's happening. Kat says in her book, Holy Disruption, um, we can seek clarity on the true meaning and full measure of his communication. We're aiming for an elucidation that is crystal clear and razor sharp so that we can be confident in the specifics of what God is saying to us. And so that's the aim for a prophetic ministry, to be razor sharp.
Yeah.
Um, like you're talking about, it cuts through stuff. It lands. It makes a difference to people. It transforms people's lives, and we want a sharpness to it. So as we're coming, I just had a look and go, oh, we've been chatting for a while.
No, it
Such a good
was
conversation.
quick.
It does go fast. What would be your top tips around that? And like, if I think my top tips, the first one would probably be creating space.
Yeah.
So that discipline of stillness and sitting with God, and the discipline of courage to share what we feel God is saying, but also the discipline of being accountable for what we share and doing that within community. So they're my top three tips. What would be some of yours, Andrew?
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail right on the head with that whole idea. I mean, I would say first of all, ask God. So and and wait. Don't be afraid to stand, wait, sit, wait. In silence. Just go, and if someone's going, "What are you doing?" Yeah, I'm just waiting for God. I'm just waiting for God to help in this situation. And then I would say similar to you, don't be afraid to share it, but encourage them to test it as well. So don't and for pastors out there who are thinking, oh, I just haven't seen it in the life of my church, I would just simply ask God, what do you want to say? What do you want to say to my church this morning? Or what do you want to say to this person as I sit in front of them, as I coach them, as I counsel them, as I talk to them, as I intersect with them? I remember saying to our young adults at Crossway when I was young adults pastor a number of years ago, don't be
Is that
surprised.
before or after 50?
It was before 50. It was before 50. Um, I won't tell you how many years ago now. Anyway,
Sorry.
I, I remember saying to them, don't be surprised if you're sitting in a university lecture and you sense that this person sitting next to you, who you may not know, is, bit quiet, bit down. Then say to God, what do I need to do to encourage this person? What do you want to say to me that I could pass on to them to encourage them today? And be amazed. Because as you trust God, as you step out in faith towards Him, as you listen to His voice, He will speak volumes through you to that person. And I think that's a really amazing thing about listening to God's voice.
And that talks about the personal transformation that God wants to bring in our lives, doesn't it? And sometimes I've heard someone describe it as 20 seconds of outrageous courage to share. What can go wrong? Well, they could reject me and then I have to, go somewhere else. But it's that courage to share and step out,
Totally.
and doing it in normal, natural ways that bring a bit of safety for us and bring a bit of framework.
Stuart Robinson, who was the pastor at Crossway for 20-something years, 25, 26 years, he used to say faith is spelt R-I-S-K. It's a risk, but it's a faith-filled risk. And I just sit there and I go, and it's worth the risk to see what God might be wanting to say to someone else. It's cool.
Yeah. We would love to hear stories around how people have found God spoken to you and how God is using you to speak to others, because I think in the sharing of those stories, it actually builds it builds our faith up, doesn't it? It encourages us. It helps us to recognize, oh, God's spoken that way. I can trust God to speak to me as well. Now, Andrew, we've got an amazing podcast that we're doing next with Kath Livesey, and we're going to be chatting with Kath around how do we recognise God's voice in the age of misinformation. So I am so looking forward to that conversation.
I am too. It'll be really good. It'll be really good. Looking forward to it.
It's so great to see you. Happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you.
And I hope next year Leanne gets to surprise you.
I hope she don't. I hope she doesn't, actually. I really hope she doesn't. I really hope God keeps surprising me in those little small voices. So it's nice.
Awesome.
Bless you heaps, Chris. Nice to chat to you. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Prophecy Project. We hope you've been encouraged as you've listened today. We would love to connect with you. You can do that by following Accessible Prophecy on Instagram and Facebook. If you have a question or topic you would like us to cover, please check the podcast information description for ways that you can connect with us and for links to resources, workshops, and coaching. We hope you'll join us for the next Prophecy Project podcast.